And what does he do? He says, bring them hither. And he commanded the multitude to sit down. There are times when you are uncertain that you just need to sit. You just need to be still. You need to do nothing. Because when you're uncertain of what to do, the worst mistake that you can do is trying to work for God, do things for him, get in his way of his plan, his purposes. I have messed up. Before I started working at Kroger, I worked at Jet's Pizza. And I worked there for, these are 5 years, 6 years total, 7, something like that. And there was a point in my life where I was in this weird desert place. I was just sitting at the church that I was at. Situations happened, a lot of hurt happened, and I felt like I'm just doing nothing. And then a guy came up and said, "Hey, why don't you go into this pizza place with me?" And parents helped me out, and it seemed like it would be a good idea. But I was just sitting there, not doing anything. I said, "Well, God, if I'm not doing anything for you, if I'm not getting to serve in the church, why not?" That's not what God wanted me to do. Man, that was a rocky road. It was just up and down, all over the place. It didn't work out. It was not a good situation. The only partnerships that don't set sail or the only ships that don't set sail are partnerships. All right, Dave Ramsey, he says that. Boy, he was right. And then I get to a point where I'm working at Kroger, and then he just opens up door after door to say, "Hey, this is what you need for restoration. This is what you need for your church family." You see, I shouldn't have tried to help him out. I should have just stayed put, and everything would have been a lot better. Mom and Dad, everything would have been a lot better, wouldn't it, if I just would have stayed put? Mom's like, "Yeah." All right? When you're uncertain of what to do nothing. Sit. Because Jesus commanded the multitudes to sit. And then look what he does next. He says this. He commanded them to sit on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake and gave the loaves to his disciples first, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat, and they were filled. You see, when you're sitting there, and you're uncertain, and you're not doing anything, God will fill you. But you have to be willing to accept it. You have to be willing to say, "Okay, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to wait on you." And waiting on him is one of the hardest things. The men and I, of the leadership, we've been talking about, we have like a year and something left on our lease. What are we going to do? Because, it's pretty filled. We're still missing some people, and illnesses going on. And but when everybody's here, it's pretty filled. It's getting a little tight. So what do we do? Well, how about we look in the future, and we're thinking about, all right, do we buy land? Do we build something? Or what do we do? But I'm sitting here, even as I'm preaching, you know what? Men, leadership, church, when we're uncertain, when we get to that point, we'll cross that bridge. But right now, there's an uncertainty of what's going on. You know what we need to do? Nothing. Just sit and let God be God. Because the shield of faith extinguishes that uncertainty. But you have to be willing to allow that uncertainty to be extinguished. And a lot of times it's by nothing. But look at this second part. The shield of faith extinguishes uncertainty, but the shield of faith extinguishes fear. Look at verses 22 through 27. 22 through 27. 22 through 27. Not only did he extinguish their uncertainty there, now we have the next part is that he's going to extinguish their fear. In verse 22 it says this, "And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away." And I like this, that he says straightway that he constrained them. Basically he said, all you guys, boys, get into this ship, you're going to the other side. Go, I'll catch up with you. Now I'm sure I'd be like, "Well, Jesus, what are you going to do? You're going to walk on water?" They didn't know what was going to happen. So Jesus sent the multitude away. He gets his disciples. That was a joke, by the way, because he does walk on the water. You guys can laugh. Okay. And it says, "And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away." Verse 23, "And when he had sent the multitudes away, he," being Jesus, "went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. See, when storms of life come, it can make us afraid. We can become fearful. The disciples cried out because of this fear. Not to God. They didn't cry out saying, God help us. They just screamed. Have you ever been scared that you just screamed before? You guys did it to me already like a month ago with this stinking spider. All right? And you put that spider in my pulpit. It took every ounce of my being not to scream like a little girl. All right? But when I'm at home, I would have been, ah! All right? When the disciples were on this ship, there was 12 of them. They were all scared. When there's multiple people scared, that causes more people to be scared. That's how panics happen. All right? We have this pandemic. People are fearful right now. They are fearful of a virus that the flu has taken more lives of, all right? That COVID has not, all right? I'm not being political. I'm not being anything else. But people have become fearful today. They are scared to go outside of their homes. They're fearful to do anything and to live life. And that happens when you get a bunch of people getting scared and scared and scared. The disciples are on this ship. The waves, the storms of life are coming. They're crashing into the ship. The ship's filling up with water. And then all of a sudden they see this spirit out on the water. But it was Jesus. They knew who Jesus is. They didn't have to, I don't know if that's Jesus. But you know why they couldn't see Jesus? Because they were seeing the storm that they were in. And they couldn't focus. And when they see something walking out on the water, like it's a spirit. Ah! They screamed like little girls. You got to remember the disciples, most of them were of teenage years. They were not adults. They were still kids in themselves. But Jesus chose them. He handpicked them. Storms are going to come. You may be in a storm right now. You may be getting ready to head into a storm. Or maybe you just came out of one. We often have said that about the Christian life. You're either going into a storm, going through a storm, or coming out of one. That just seems to be wash, rinse, and repeat of the Christian life. And there are times where you have seasons of peace and seasons of unrest. But that's just the way it is. But fear, and that fear, it can be extinguished with the shield of faith. But when you look here and you read down, they were so fearful. But Jesus responded to them immediately. And look what he says to them. They all cried out. They were scared to death, probably getting ready to pee themselves. And Jesus says this, because they cried out for fear. But straightway, can I tell you this? Jesus straightway, immediately, he will cry out to you. He will call out to you when you are fearful and you feel like you just can't move because fear freezes. Fear causes us not to be able to move. But it says immediately, straightway, Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. Jesus is looking at them from far off, through the storm with the waves crashing in. And he says, Hey, boys, it's me. It's Jesus. It's your friend. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Be of good cheer. Because you had 12 guys on this boat, fearful and scared to death. But when they looked out, there was only one that fear was extinguished. Because who went out on the water with Jesus? It was Peter. Did you know that all of them could have gotten out of that boat and walked on water? Every single one of them. But there was only one. Because their fear, Peter's fear, was extinguished. When he heard it was Jesus and the waves were crashing in, he said, Is that you? Jesus, is that you? And what does Jesus say here? Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, come. Oh man, now Peter's thinking, well, I guess I gotta jump out of this boat. I wasn't sure if that was Jesus or not. I don't know if that's what was going through his head. If he was like, hey, if that's you, you tell me to come out on the water and come, and I will. I'm going to jump out of this boat. Come. Okay. But his fear was extinguished. Well, look at this third thing. This is what happens. Peter's fear might have been extinguished. And he was able to jump out of that boat, and he got on that water. But his doubt would have to be extinguished. Look at verses 28 through 31. 28 through 31. It says this, and Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee on the water. And he said, come. And Peter was come down out of the ship. He walked on the water to go to Jesus. Now, I don't know about you, but that would be amazing to be able to jump out of a ship and to walk across that water. I once heard that there was a evangelical, a minister, and a priest, and they all went out fishing one day. And all of a sudden, the evangelical and the pastor said, man, we got to go to the bathroom. So the evangelical got out of the boat and walked across the water and did his business and came back. And then next, the pastor, he goes, well, I got to go too. And he got out and walked on the water and ended up coming back. And then here's the priest, and he said, well, I'm going to prove these guys that my faith is stronger than them. And he jumped out of the boat and he sank all the way down to the bottom. And the evangelical looked over at the pastor and said, maybe we should have told him about the rocks. Be awesome, wouldn't it? Peter wasn't walking on no rocks. Peter jumped out and he was walking on the water. But it's because that fear was extinguished. But look what happens to him here in the next few verses. It says, but when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? Has anybody here ever doubted in their life? You know, I've doubted my own salvation before. That has come into my mind. As a believer, that can happen. We can doubt, are we really saved? Sometimes we can get neck deep in sin. Sometimes we can just feel like we're just dead because of sin, and sin's come into our life and we just can't seem to get out of it, and we're rebound by that sin and the shackles are back on us, and we think, I can't breathe, I can't get out. Well, I must not really be saved if I'm just living in this sin, and I just can't seem to stop this habitual sin. Why can't I get out of it? Why can't I break the shackles? That can happen, and then doubt will start to set in. And doubt is powerful. And what happened with Peter is he gets out of that boat. He starts walking on the water. And isn't it interesting that a miracle is taking place? A man's walking on water. But yet, in the midst of that miracle, doubt still came into his life. Church, even in the greatest moments, when things are going so well for you in your life, there will still be times that doubt can come in. But do you know why that doubt creeps in? It's because when you're looking straight forward, you're saying, there he is. I got my eyes on the prize. My eyes are on Jesus Christ. I know what he's doing, and I can see him doing something powerful. And all of a sudden, I'm walking down. I'm out on the water. I'm in the midst of something great. I'm in the midst of a miracle. And all of a sudden, I hear this loud noise over here to the right, or I hear this loud noise over here to the left. The wind's boisterous, and I look and I think, whoa, that's some pretty scary waves going on. I'm in a storm, and I didn't realize it. And I start looking around, and eventually my eyes are now off of Jesus. And I'm not looking at him. And then I start to doubt, well, what's going on? Why am I even doing this? What's going on? Oh man, I can't do this. I can't. Peter was walking on that water, and I can't do this, Jesus. I can't. Has that ever happened? You start doing something for Him,